Going to have a wonderful discuss pertaining food insecurity and how it's a threat to national security. And I guess for today over Zoom we have Zubai Abdul Rauf, who is the Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of Wadata Media and Advocacy Center, WAMAC. Good morning and welcome on board, Mr. Zubai.
Good morning. Good morning to you all.
It's so nice
Good
to have
morning.
you here. It's so nice to have you.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you this morning.
Okay, so I want to ask you, what is food insecurity and how is it a threat to national security?
Well, when you talk of food insecurity, you are looking at how a country or a community were unable, to have the necessary environment for them to cultivate their land and also to get the necessary food that will be used by that community or that country, and also to use what they have after tilling the land in form of agricultural processes and value chain to be able to have some little amount of money that will take care of themselves, not only to have food on their table, but also to have something that they also can use as an economic gain. So once you have an infraction in this direction, then it means you have food insecurity. Food insecurity generally is the inability of a country or a community or a society to have, a seamless flow of food and also resources, and also to develop the agricultural value chain.
Okay, interesting. What role do economic policies in the country play in creating and mitigating food insecurity?
Well, if you look at Nigeria today, since when we started the dollarization of our economy and also the inflationary tendencies that made our economy and also make our currency to devalue to a level at which the naira become a mere paper, and while we take other currencies instead of for us to value our own currency, then that is the beginning of our trouble. So most of the economic policies that you have an economic policy somersault. Today, this government is on this direction, so another government will come. Instead of us to have continuity of the policies that has to do with our economy, and most of the time, Nigeria depend on imports from other countries. So we don't export. So therefore, our country's production is at a lower help. The industries have gone down or they are in comatose, and there are no specific policy that will aid, food production in the country. So, take for instance, when you look at all this agricultural value chain, I keep emphasizing agricultural value chain. When government close borders and what have you, and also try to see that we now have a kind of growing of our agriculture through getting particularly rice, maize, and wheat because of the war in Ukraine. Bread has become one of the essential staple that people use in our homes. But the wheat, they have to import this wheat. And with this Russian Ukraine war, so therefore the wheat the flour becomes scarce and even at a very higher prices. So therefore, if to say that we have an economic policy that was geared towards supporting.
All right. We have a bit of an issue connecting with him. We have a network issue right there. I'm hoping that we're gonna back to him. Zubaira, giving us an insight into how food security is affected by some of our activities and actions. I mean, there are several other questions that we need to actually ask him, which are still pending. But he was trying to give us an insight on how food insecurity can actually cause national,
Crisis.
insecurity. I can just imagine that a whole lot of persons cannot afford food, staple food, how angry you will become, how really bad you will feel as a person. And when you feel that bad, you would lose hope in the country, given that the country doesn't have adequate provisions for you as a person, and even the monies that you earn is not enough for you to even fend for yourself. And so there is this diminishing returns that comes with your inability to even feed. So it is that bad. It is that bad. And I just hope that we'll connect back to him to give us a little more insights on the topic. We're back shortly after this, to stay with us.
Well, sorry, I think we have a little problem here. Sorry.
Okay, Zubari, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. And, in this technology, sometimes it fails anyway. Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, the next question is basically related to climate change. How do you think climate change affects food insecurity in the country?
Well, if you look at globally, you see, it is no longer news, the effect of global warming or the climate change, as we can put it, as it affects agriculture in Nigeria and also in other countries in the world. If you look at the kind of farming we're having in Nigeria, we're not there yet on mechanized farming. We're not there in certain aspects of development towards seedlings and what have you. And so if you look at all these factors, you can see that vividly the yield per hectare is being affected every day because of lack of proper research on the lands and what have you. And also, when you look at the the agricultural policies, as I was talking before, the agricultural policies is not supported, you understand, by the way it should be. And also, when you look at what has been happening in the 70s and the 80s, there are a lot of awareness on the farmers, and also you have personnel who normally visit the farmers into their farms. That is, you have agri-extension workers in those days. They now give farmers the necessary assistance in terms of seeds that they are going to use, and they will measure the soil so that, they will give an advice on a particular product, to be planted in that area. So the absence of this culminated with the climate change in Nigeria. It made, the food production to come in at the lower step, because when you look at it, there are specifically, let's say in northern Nigeria, because of adverse effect of drought, so we're supposed to have a drought resistance crops that will be, in tandem with the reality of the time. So the reality of the time is there are, the seasonal rainfall has been dwindling every year in everywhere, every year out. And sometimes, if you look at the rain patterns in the country, you see sometimes it overshoots, sometimes you have a long break, even during the rainy season. So all these things is effect of climate change. And what the farmers are supposed to get is to have the seedlings that are very short, that will not take a long period of time, and that can resist the climate change effect. So if farmers are not getting what they are supposed to get, so this will help to aggravate the problem of insecurity, food insecurity in the country. So therefore, climate change is very, very important that people should now try to see how best they can mitigate that. There are a lot of programs in which the government through the World Bank, like ACRISAL, that they are doing in order to mitigate all these effects of climate change. But that is not enough. But because if a World Bank, a project or whatever support, and without having a commensurate policies by the respective three tiers of government, because even the agriculture, it is not something that will say it is one side of the government that will do this. It is at the exclusive list, concurrent list, not on an exclusive list, because the federal government will do our own, the state government will do their own, and the local governments will do their own. So once we have a kind of policy, all of them, and we have a synergy between the local government, the state government, and the federal government. So that will help to mitigate the effect of climate change in the food production and value chain in the country.
Do you think that current agricultural policies that Nigeria have are enough to mitigate against food insecurity? And what measures do you think can be taken, or if you like, what policies do you think can be, enacted so as to have security in our food value chain?
There are policies. There are, dozens of policies in agriculture in Nigeria. But the problem is the implementation. Now, there was a policy under the last regime in which, people were even supported into agribusiness, for instance, and also the rice production, in which we have Kebbi State, even Ebonyi State, Benue, and other states that have, lands, and also they have a marshy area to cultivate rice. But at the end of it all, apart from Kebbi State, apart from other states, that are there doing this kind of agriculture, for instance, Nasarawa, under the current dispensation, that they have, a form of mechanized farmers in that area. So I think the best way, even if the policies are there, even if the implementation is at a single stage, the first thing is, one, to have a kind of public-private partnership, PPP arrangement. Therefore, getting all these companies that are into rice or whatever crops for cultivation, and also to see the value chain in that. I'll give an example here. Ola, they have the biggest rice farm in Nasarawa State. And the rice cultivation in Nasarawa State, and also the rice cultivation in Kebbi State, and also the maize cultivation in Kaduna State and part of Kano State, in which it brings about some industries which are processing this rice, also processing this maize, for the sake of providing other aspects of our needs, like flour, like even some of this food like spaghetti and other things. So once we are able to have this kind of PPP arrangement between private companies, entities, or individuals who are willing to do that, and also with the government, and also the government should now explain all those policies to reduce certain aspects of tax and whatever, and give a very rebate on the tenure of the land given to all these companies for them to cultivate this land, and also provide a conducive environment. Remember, one of the issues that bring insecurity in Nigeria, food insecurity, is the general insecurity situation in the country. If you look at the North Central, the Northwest, and even in the Northeast, where there have been for long, or almost 2 decades, having the insurgency or the
All right. We also have a bit of an issue with the connection. I do not know why the network is
Yes,
unstable this
sorry.
morning, even though the same
Sorry.
morning we hear
Number two,
about
number
the
two.
increase in
Well, the
tariffs.
Northwest, for instance, that is bedeviled with insecurity, that is the banditry and also kidnappings in those areas. Most of the farmers cannot access their home. So most of the farms were being abandoned because the farmers there have been abducted and whatever. So unless or until we address this issue of insecurity, particularly these farmers hardest clashes and also this issue of banditry, we cannot be able to have food security in Nigeria. What happened today in Kaduna State, particularly in the area where I come from, the government in the last 2 months has entered into a kind of peace deal with the bandits, which the bandits agreed to lay down their arms to release all those abducted without paying them a kobo. And also, there was a series of meetings. And as a result of that, it has bring back life to those communities and adjoining forests or community states of Niger and even Zamfara and Katsina State. As it is today, there is a kind of intermingling between those aggrieved parties, that is the herdsmen or the bandits themselves, and also the communities. We will see them in the market, which in the last 10 years we cannot see them. So if government can continue to do this, to provide the necessary environment, a secured environment, an environment that is not something that people will be scared of, people will go back to the land, people will cultivate a lot of crops, and therefore will fight this issue of food insecurity in the country.
Okay, sir. You had mentioned the problem of farmers headers clash, and we know banditry farmers headers clash has stopped people from having access to their farms and produces as well. It's been a challenge, a national challenge over time. And what way would you say that this challenge could be dealt with in order to, give people the access to give people the freedom to access their farmlands and equally boost crop production in the country across all states?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I said the efforts made by
I think we're having connection problems right now.
Hopefully it will clear out. Your question is quite important, given the situation that
Exactly. He had mentioned the case of farmers and headers clash, which is something that happens in the north, in the southeast, and across every other state. And I'm really worried because if we keep talking about the problem but no solution. So I really wanted to get his opinion on what he thinks are the proper things to do, the right approach to these things, in order to have a settlement between farmers and headers, in order to, create a canopy of security for farmers in order for them to access their farmlands, especially this period that it's almost the festive season where people can actually, rather the rainy season when people can actually plant and wait for the harvest period, because this food problem is a national problem right now. Okay, so we have it back. Mr. Idris, we're talking about the solution for the farmers' headers clash with the farmers as well, in order for us to have like a confined space where farmers feel safe enough to go back to their farmlands to farm. What do you think should be implemented as a means of curbing this problem of insecurity for farmers in order for them to access their farmlands and actually continue the harvest, the plantation season?
Well, what I was saying before the infraction, the technology infraction that we have through our connectivity, And I said, what happened in Kaduna State through the government of Kaduna State with the Office of the National Security Advisor, that there is a need to have a shift between kinetic approach in addressing the issue of insecurity and also to have a non-kinetic approach through dialogue and also negotiations with these people, with the agreed parties, so that you see together, once we are able to bring the two parties together and also the large stakeholders, the community leaders, the farmers, the government, the security agencies, and also the leadership of all those, that are in this banditry issue. So this is what should be done. So once we have that, then we have a process in which we are going to address the issue of farmers not accessing their farms. So, as I said, if now that the Kaduna State model is being replicated across the whole northwestern states and also part of the north central, that is the state of Niger, Kogi, Nasarawa, and even Plateau. So once you have this non-kinetic approach, address this issue of all these clashes, farmers, others clashes, or banditry, and what have you, people will have access to their farms. Once people have access to their farm as a result of whatever peace processes that have gone, either on the ground or that also metamorphose to become a kind of peace in the whole of that ecosystem. So this will help to make people, you understand, go back to the farm, and also we have the necessary environment for tilling the land and also to kickstart the agricultural activities in those farms in the next season.
All right. What role do you think that technology can play in helping with these issues that we're facing? We know we have these food insecurity problems exacerbated by the farmers' herders clash, the fear of going back to our farms. Do you think technology can play any role in helping against this menace?
Sure, technology must come to play. Gone are the days that will continue to do the kind of primitive type of agriculture. It is not subsistence farming that, you only go to the farm to only grow what you can take to sustain you. But agriculture has gone beyond that. As I said many times in this program, that there is the need for us to explore the agricultural value chain. So for you to explore agricultural value chain, technology must be there. For instance, you need to have, mechanized, technology of not only the seasonal farming, but not only the rain season farming, but the dry season farming also need to encourage. But you cannot be able to work out a dry season farming without having the necessary technology to that. For instance, there is a new technology. Instead of you to have, a pumping machine that can now grow water from whatever source you have, whether from a river or from a dam or from a borehole or wherever. So you cannot continue to use fuel, because when you look at the fuel prices escalation, so the farmers, it will not be cheap for them to have. But once you have a new technology using the renewable energy to be able to get the pumps to work with an alternative power source, then the farmers can get water for them to till the land. But for this rainy season farming, we need to have even the planters is a new technology. even the pesticide. It is something that you will not say that when I have, let's say, even 10,000 hectares of land, that's okay, that I need to have so number of men to go into this farm. So once you have a new technology and a new method of farming through the use of all those pesticides and what have you to control the weed, to control also the retardation of that farm due to some other plants that have been threat to the crops. So we will be able to use that kind of technology and also adapt that technology and to make our food production grow as it is in the country.
All right. Do you think public-private partnerships can be leveraged in solving this problem? And to what extent do you think that can be done?
Absolutely, public-private partnership will help greatly. As I gave an example of a farm owned by Olam and other, organizations that have farms across many parts of the country. If we have that, definitely we'll have, a kind of boost in the food production in the country. If you look at it, apart from that, a definite policies by some government. Let me take Niger State also. Niger State governor, under his new Niger agenda, was able to place Niger State into a global map of food production in the country. So once we have that deliberate policies by the government and also try to get, a private sector or even some multinational organizations that are into agricultural activities in there, we will be able to have an enhanced food production and also address the food insecurity.
All right. We understand that everyone is doing their best. Recently, the federal government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, had announced that they want to establish ranches around the 36 states of the Federation. How much of that do you think would work with solving the problems of farmers-herders clashes? And do you think this thought about the Fulani is not the type that do ranches? There are people who move from one place to another. How much of that do you think would solve this problem of the farmers-herders clash?
Well, me, I'm not into that rhetorics of politicians, whether ranching or not ranching or whatever. But the reality is, the kind of livestock development or livestock production that we have in the country is an old-fashioned. Because when you look at countries like South Africa, even Kenya, where you have the traditional Kikuyu, that also they are just herders there, they are just like the Fulanis we have in Nigeria. They also were able to, have a kind of places whereby it's just like a ranch, but they can take their cattle, for them to have the food, water, and what have you, instead of them to be rumbling within the forest and also from one state to the other. So if we are able to have a genuine and sincere policy that will have ranches being propelled and also managed by private individuals with the assistance of government, then we'll be able to have that. So even those herders who are not knowledgeable in these ranches of thing, they can be able to see that look, if we do this kind of things, that will help us. But for their own, it's for the government, is to establish a grazing areas, which is a ranch, where there is water, where there is grasses, and also the government to plant these grasses that will make them to be in a particular environment throughout the year, because whatever they need, the basic necessities that they need, whether in terms of the water, whether in terms of the grasses, whether the schools and the clinics. So all these things, if the government will establish this kind of things to all these farmers, to all these herders, I believe they will tune into this ranching, and this ranching will solve the problems of these clashes between farmers and others. Because right now, even if you say you want to retrace back the the grazing routes that we have that are dated pre-independence date to date, most of these routes that normally is the source of conflict between herders and the farmers, they have been overtaken by farmers. So either the communities there, or even some people who have been given farms along these grazing routes. So therefore, the best way to address this issue is not retracing the grazing route, but also to establish this ranch and to provide the necessary amenities that will take care of both the cattle, and also that will take care of the needs, that is the social needs of these herders, that is providing them health facilities, schools, water, and also to see how best you can be able to help them and to give them some incentives that has to do with the life and welfare of their own cattle. That is giving them even some of these veterinary doctors and whatever that will go and take care of their cattle and look after their cattle and give them the necessary advice. And I think if we can do that, that will address this problem. Unless or until we are able to do this, we'll continue to have this kind of clashes between farmers and others. Because even if you say you want to ranch, and without providing all those necessary amenities to both the cattle and also to the herders, then we'll continue to have this kind of clashes.
All right. On a final note, some research show that some seedlings are not able to stand droughts in the north. And I'm just wondering, this latest development of genetically modified seedlings, do you think that it's a welcome development for agricultural system? And how much would that be used? How much would that help in mitigating against food insecurity across the country?
Well, the GSM, as it's been fondly called, well, it is an issue that is another topic of its own. People are scary about GSM, that's genetically modified GMF, genetically modified seeds. Honestly, people are scary. One, because we are not there yet. Because you cannot have a GM without having the process in which you are carrying out your agricultural practices. In Nigeria today, we use
Okay, we have a bit of an issue with the connection. I just need him to just add a thought regarding the genetically modified seedlings. A lot of people have kicked against it. I mean, the guest at his opening remark in that question says that we're not there yet. So I'm just wondering what his next line of thought would be. Okay, Zubair, go ahead. Okay. So would love to actually hear his thoughts on the genetically modified seedlings, as it were, and it's just so crazy, how this is unfolding, with many people kicking against it, saying that it will not be good for human consumption, that it causes cancer and or whatnot. I really don't know to what extent that we would hear from him. Zubair, can you hear me? Can you end on that thought
Yes, I
about
can hear
the
you. And you know, we're talking
GSM?
of technology, we're talking of, well, as I said, the GM seedlings are not there yet. But what we need to do is, instead of us of adopting GMs, we need to now empower our research institutes. We have more than 2 dozens of research institutes of different crops and also and varieties of aquatic agriculture. So if Nigeria will now empower their research institutes, the agricultural research institute, to be able to bring out seeds that can be adapted in our environment, that are drought resistance, we will be able to take care of that challenge in our country. The most important thing is how the GM seedlings will be able to multiply, the production. That is, in a 1 hectare, if to say that on a normal seed, you get, let's say, 20 bags. So when you have a GM seedling, it will go up to 60 bags. That is tenfold. So, but for me, most of the research institute that we have, like Rice Research Institute at Badegi, United States, like the IAERLS in Zaria, like the Tuber and Root Crops Research Institute at Omodike, like the Fisheries and Aquatic Research Institute at New Busa. All those institutes, to just mention a few, if they can be able to have some kind of researches that will bring, some crops or some aquatic, fingerlings that will be able to be adapted and to be resistant to the drought, problems that we are having in the country. That would be better than to have all these GMs that, in essence, the farmers cannot, effectively.
All right, Zubair.
Yes, please.
What? Zubair, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I want to really appreciate you for your insights on the show this morning. We truly appreciate your thoughts, and we hope that the government will do a lot more in making sure that food is secured and food is very readily available for the teeming population of the country. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've come to the end of today's broadcast. We truly appreciate everyone who is joining, obviously, who is a barrister, giving us such insights into what the EFCC activities has been. I mean, alluding to the fact that they have sacked 27 persons, and there are more persons who are even under investigation that are members of their staff. And the second discussion was all about food security as it relates to the other issues that we're facing on the national scale. We appreciate every one of you for putting in the time and effort to being part of the program, and to the producers right at the MCR, many thanks for your seamless broadcasting this morning. My name is Charles Pius.
My name is Quinsley Rowland.